All right, so you know how to sell. You can talk about yourself. You can talk about your business, and that's great. That's important for us to be able to articulate what our service is and how it can benefit the customer. Very, very important. But the main question that I have for you today is, do you know how to close? Because if you don't know how to close, you can talk about yourself, you can talk about your business all day, but you'll never get that customer to the table to do business without being able to close. And what is closing? When we really start to think about what does it mean to be able to close? Well, how I see closing is very simple. You have to be able to ask that customer for the business and get them to say yes. That's simple. Can you close? Can you do that? We're going to talk about that today in this video. So come on inside, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Now let's get into the business. Now I want to take you back to your high school years. If you think back, remember when you were in high school and you wanted to go to the big event, the big school dance, or you just wanted to go somewhere with your friends. You're probably going to start to think about that at least a couple of days out, maybe even a week out. And what's on your mind? What's at the forefront of your mind is, how am I going to pose this question? How am I going to phrase this question to my parents to get them to say yes? Because that's the bottom line. How can I get my parents to agree to allow me to go to the school dance? Well, that's the same thing that we do in closing. But there are different ways that we ask our customers to get them to say yes. So we're going to talk about some of those ways. There's a now or never way of closing, the summary close, the sharp angle close, the question close, the assumptive close, the takeaway close, and the soft close. Please excuse me. Today we're going to be talking about the two that I use more often than any other method, and that is the question close and the soft close. Okay, quick alibi fire before we get started. I want to make sure we're on the same sheet of music as it pertains to the different methods of closing. I showed you 7 different methods, and I told you that we're going to focus on 2 of those methods. And the reason for that is because I do 2 of those methods well. Sometimes what we do is, because there are 7 of them, we go in and we say, hey, we're going to go and do all of those different methods. We're going to put all of those different methods in our arsenal. There's nothing wrong with that if you can do that and do it well. Unfortunately, most of us can't do a lot of different things well. So I think it's best to pick what it is that you do well and focus on that and make that your go-to way of closing. Because remember, it's not about being a jack of all trades. It's more so about being a master of something. That way, you can get in touch with your customer and feel confident and comfortable when you're talking to them, and you're going to come over a lot better than you would if you didn't. And I think it's a good idea that we accept right away that we are likely going to be nervous when we start to ask that customer for the business, because it's not something that we're used to doing. It's something that we're uncomfortable with, asking somebody for something. But we have to get over that. We don't want to hesitate when it comes to asking that customer for the business. The only way that you know whether a customer is willing to work with you or not is you have to ask that very important question, are you willing to do business with me? Posing that question in a way that they can understand, the way that makes sense, a way that they're willing to say yes to. If you remember at the front part of this video, I told you that there were 2 ways that I like to close, the question close and the soft close. Now, the reason why I like these 2 methods is because it allows for me to set the prospect up throughout the conversation, because I'm asking qualifying questions all throughout the conversation. Now, the whole purpose of those questions is to make sure that, number 1, this particular shipper needs my service, and number 2, they need the part of the service that I'm getting ready to offer to them. That's why the questions that I'm asking first will set them up for the final question. For example, in conversation with the shipper, what I've discovered is that he's not satisfied with his on-time pickup rates and his on-time delivery rates. So what I want to talk about, what I want to speak to, is our checks and balances that we have in place to make sure that loads are picked up and delivered on time. And not only that, I also want to talk to him about our on-time pickup rates, our on-time delivery rate. How often do we do what we say we're going to do? And then once we've gotten to that point, now I want to ask that real important question, because we've talked about the service, we've talked about what we can do, we've talked about the issues that he has. Now it's time to ask that important question. How do you pose that question? How do you phrase that question in this sense? Well, it's very simple. This is how I would do it. Okay, so Mike, we've discussed your business and the issues that you're having, and we talked about our service and how this service may be a solution to some of those issues. So now the question that I have for you is, do you see the value in the service that we provide, and do you think that this service would benefit you and your company? And then I shut up and I let Mike talk. And if he says yes, then of course it's time to close the deal at that time. How would I close the deal? I would simply say, which email should I send you out our setup package? That's simple. Or if he says no, then that leaves the door open for me to continue selling. So now I want to talk to you about soft closing. You may have already heard about the hard seller. I think it takes a certain personality type to be a hard seller. Now, when I say a hard seller, what I mean is someone who's willing to go to any length to make sure that they get the sale done. That's what it's all about, selling. It's obvious that they're selling. They don't care that you know that they're selling. They want you to know that they're selling. That's the personality type they are. I don't think that there's anything wrong with a person of that personality type. Nothing wrong with that at all. But that's not who I am. And I think it's important to develop your style. There are different models out there, but it's important to develop your own style. So my style is more closely aligned with soft selling or soft closing. Soft closing is more of a suggestive tone as compared to a demanding tone. A more laid back approach as compared to an up close, in your face, I'm going to sell you right now. A less obvious approach to closing the sale. You're not always asking for the business on every single close. Sometimes you're going to be setting the shipper up for the next conversation. For example, you've talked with Mike the shipper, and Mike has disclosed to you that they are very dissatisfied with the amount that they're paying on accessorial charges. They're paying through the nose for those charges. This is how I would phrase the closing question in this scenario. Hey Mike, what if I could show you a way that would allow for you to save 15% on your overall accessorial charges? Would you be interested in learning more? And then I shut up and I give the mic to Mike. So as you can see, there are a lot of different ways to sell. There are a lot of different ways to close a sale. The idea is to be yourself. Make your own way. Develop your own style. Yes, there's a model there, and we should do it according to the model. But we don't have to do it verbatim. We don't have to do it just like the model says to do it. We can put our own spin, put our own way on it, because then it's ours. It's genuine. Because when you call a customer, the last thing that you want to do is to be trying to be somebody else. Just be who you are, and I promise you that will be good enough. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you're interested in learning more about the freight broker business, I'm going to leave a link in the description. It's my free 5-video series titled How the Load Movement Process Works. You get to come into my office and watch me as I move loads, talk to shippers, talk to carriers. That way you can get a really good idea of how the business works before you come into it. And if you want to know how we get shippers as freight brokers, I'm going to leave you my free video titled How We Find Shippers. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.